Episode 4 of Star Trek Picard has warped into our screens today, so let's jump into our review and breakdown. Hey everyone, my name is Captain Jack and welcome to Trek Central. Picard Episode 4, titled Absolute Candor, has now aired on CBS All Access and CTV Sci-Fi Canada. International viewers can watch Episode 4 via Amazon Prime Video on February the 14th. Just a heads up, it does come out a little hour earlier sometimes, so if you're waiting up till midnight, check an hour earlier, it might be out, but we'll let you know via social media just in case. As a heads up, our video here will contain spoilers for Episode 4 of Picard. Therefore, to avoid spoilers, we recommend turning away now. With that out of the way, let's go. First off, we have to say the directing of this episode was done by Trek alum Jonathan Frakes. Frakes did an absolute amazing job directing this episode. Many scenes were very personal between multiple different characters, which just made everything come to life. We've got a lot more world building in this episode, from Romulan culture to Kualat Milat and the state of the galaxy. I will say, I absolutely adore the fleshing out of the Romulan culture and not making it as monolithic as previous Trek has done. They actually feel like a living culture with differences yet similarities. The episode was still very much grounded and put characters at the forefront of the episode, with all the world building being extra stuff and not thrown at us. Whereas in the last 3 episodes we've seen how cancelling of the Romulan relief mission affected Starfleet, most notably Picard and Raffi, this week we see how it affected the Romulans who may have been rescued but were still abandoned when the Federation pulled out. The colony of Vashti was originally an example of a relief mission going well, how colony worlds accepted Romulan refugees with open arms and helped them in their time of need, but they still required further assistance in the form of infrastructure, homes and governance, as well as supplies. What must it have been like for those colonists who were immediately cut off from all of this when the Federation can no longer support them? I don't know, but you can clearly see it in this episode. This concept, as well as that of some of the areas the Federation pulled out becoming lawless, is very similar to, let's say, Nimbus 3 from The Final Frontier, where warlords have taken advantage of the chaos, and it kind of adds some very interesting story dynamics to play here. We do happen to hear our first mention of the Fenris Rangers in Episode 4. This is a militant group who are attempting to keep order in Romulan colonies and surrounding space, but they have very little resources to do so. From the released media, we know that 7 of 9 is a part of this group somehow, so we'll touch on more of that a little bit later. Regarding what I do not like about this episode, there is one specific moment that stuck out, and that would personally have been of Nawak and Soji sliding around in a Borg ventilation space. I'm not sure why, personally I just felt this was a bit silly, and I did not like it really. Then again, you can look at it from Nawak's manipulation angle, and it does make sense in that regard. Either way, kinda just wasn't my cup of tea. Once I've had more time to process other thoughts about this episode, I'll be mentioning them in our Trek Central live streams this Sunday at 9 PM GMT. Head over for a casual discussion on the latest episode of Star Trek Picard every weekend. Don't forget to share your thoughts and opinions on Episode 4 with us via the video comments section below. We're always interested in what you have to say about Star Trek, so make it so. Jumping into our breakdown, the episode starts on Vashti in the year of 2385. This scene actually takes place in the brand new, most recent book, Star Trek Picard: The Last Best Hope by Una McCormack. So after reading that, it was very interesting to see this location on screen. Picard beams down to this thriving colony of relocated Romulans in a white suit. My first thought was that he looks very much like Belloc from Indiana Jones' Raiders of the Lost Ark. Maybe a subtle reference for Picard's love of archaeology? I don't know. Anyway, Picard meets the Kualat Milat, a group of Romulan warrior nuns, who are the Amphius of a Tal Shiar. Throughout this episode, we learn a lot about the Kualat Milat. Their philosophy is that of absolute candor, hence the title of this episode. This means that they're to be 100% truthful and have no filter between their thoughts and their mouth, which is quite stark compared to the untruthfulness we are usually associated with a Romulan culture. I wonder why the Tal Shiar hasn't wiped them out already. As said, they are a group of warrior nuns who use a Tunkalunk, a form of cane sword. They are very samurai-like, with them binding their swords and becoming Kwalakanai for someone they deem in fighting a lost cause. I will say, bear with me on the pronunciation here, it is quite a mouthful sometimes. We get some very nice scenes of Picard and Elnor almost acting like the son Picard never had. We see Jean-Luc reading Elnor the Three Musketeers and even fences with him. But this idyllic retreat ends abruptly when Picard gets the news that Mars and Utopia Planitia has been attacked by the rogue synthetics. After the introduction, we get some conversation between Rios and Jurati. Jurati is obviously bored while Rios is still reading through his book, The Tragic Sense of Life. We also find out that Rios only has Klingon opera holo videos on board, which is a story I really want to hear about. It gives me flashbacks to Worf singing Klingon opera aboard the USS Defiant in Deep Space Nine. Raffi barges into the bridge and asks directly why they're not going to Free Cloud upon hearing that they're heading to the colony of Vashti. and knowing that Vashti was a colony world and what has become now, she heads to confront Jean-Luc. It does seem like the entire ship of the La Sirena is outfitted with hollow emitters, which does explain why Rios' holograms can walk about around on the whole ship. But another benefit is that Picard has changed his room to look like the study on his chateau. He is joined by a hospitality hologram, which definitely has a better accent than the ENH. What's quite interesting is his hologram says he got the measurements from the study from a Mr. Chabon. The name sounds oddly familiar to Michael Chabon, who is one of the series writers and the season 1 showrunner for Picard. This could be a legit connection or a nice little reference, either way I love it. An interesting note about this particular hologram is it says that Rios hardly uses this feature and prefers to keep his own company. Weird thing considering holograms that look like you are preferably still your own company, I guess. We get some interesting world building about the colony of Vashti and that these sectors essentially left by the Federation. This sector used to be Fenris Rangers territory, who are basically a group of fighters who fight for those who need help. However, due to their lack of resources, it has fallen to the control of warlords. One particular warlord is called Candor, which sounds very familiar to Kyle Katarn from Star Wars The Jedi Knight series. He apparently managed to get himself an old Romulan bird of prey. Now for months we've been wondering about this 23rd century warbird and what it could mean for the overarching narrative. But it turns out, as always, our theories were a little bit too elaborate and it was simply the ship of a local warlord and regarded as a bit of an antique. On Vashti, there is now the Romulan rebirth movement, which is a throwaway line, but I feel like it could be interesting for future developments of the plot. This is probably a Romulan-centric group, and it'd be interesting what their goals are. Probably reparations for the Federation for leaving them scattered and divided. Vashti also has a planetary shield now with defense nodes. This seems pretty expensive, but it's said to have been bought secondhand and installed by the Fenris Rangers. So it's safe to assume the Fenris Rangers do have some sort of available manpower. Hopefully we'll see more of them later on. Picard ends up beaming down to Vashti, and with his white suit from 2385 is now been replaced by his dark jacket, which is still rather stylish, might I add. So too has a vibrant world of the colony. It's now replaced by a poverty-stricken world. Whereas before it was vibrant and everyone greeted Picard with shouts of Jolan True, now no one wants to talk with Picard, and there's even a sign saying Romulans only, clearly a divide between Terrans and Romulans, as some do mention later. Moving to the Borg cube, we find out that Ramda tried to take her own life after the incident in the last episode. Now at console Soji about this, I will say that the CGI of a little drone flying was a bit iffy, however the drone very much reminds me of Romulan Tel'Shar drones from Star Trek Online, a nice little detail if it's meant to be. We then proceed to a bar in the cube and the pair are drinking some Romulan ale, a nice little touch. The scenes with Soji and Narek I would consider cute in any other context, but due to Narek's second-hand nature and we kinda know what he's up to, it kind of puts it off and doesn't really feel cute or anything like that. We know Narek's up to something and it kind of takes away from a possible romance here. I don't know, I just get a bit of an off sense about these scenes. Moving back to the colony of Vashti, in orbit, Kar-Kantan arrives in his classic bird of prey. Seeing a ship from the original series modernised yet still keeping the look and the essence of his scene is amazing. And I actually really do love the shots we get of his ship. I hope one day Egomos or Hero Collector do decide to make a Star Trek Picard Starships collection, as I would love to have this one as a model. Picard talks to Zani, the matriarch of Aquat Balat, and saying that they allowed the perfect to become the enemy of the good. Instead of trying to do some good and doing what he can to help the Romulan people after the attack on Mars, he lost hope as he could not save them all. However, he is not too late to rescue Elnor, and even though Picard says Elnor might die on his mission, Picard will be really letting Elnor live by bringing him on the mission, as he technically does not belong with the all-female Qalat Milat. Now as Picard walks through the streets of Vashti, he picks up a sign saying Romulans only and throws it to the floor and walks over it. I feel like this is being well too aggressive from Picard's standpoint. He really shouldn't be surprised for Romulans taking offense on this. A former Romulan senator chastised Picard, telling him that he did not need his help and that the Federation purposefully lied to the Romulan people to scatter and divide them. This is something we've seen a lot of before in most of the auxiliary media such as the Countdown comic and also the new Una McCormack book The Last Best Hope. The Romulans strongly believe that the Federation are only helping them now because they're weakened and divided. Even Starfleet admit that the Romulans see them as helping them when they're weak and divided. It's something very interesting, and I don't think we're going to see the last of this as we go forward. Picard tries to talk his way out of the situation, as he usually does, but he cannot. They demand justice and throw him a sword. After a couple of blows, Picard throws down his sword. This does not appease the Romulans, but Elnor arrives and instantly dispatches the Romulans, decapitating one of them. Elnor is now Picard's Kwalankai, and has bound his sword to Picard's lost cause. Before the other Romulans can use their disruptors on the duo, they beam up to the La Sirena, just in time. Moving back to the Borg cube, again I will keep saying that Narissa and Narek's relationship is extremely creepy. Narissa chokes Narek until he admits what Soji is, and gives him an ultimatum that if there's no progress on his approach soon, she will use her own approach of pain and torture, and we all know how that one ended out last time. Back to the La Serena, and Carcantar has now attacked the La Serena. Rios activates the emergency tactical officer who is called Emmett. This hologram seems to only benefit Rios as he speaks only Spanish, and is actually quite a laid-back hologram compared to Rios himself. You'd think for a tactical hologram they'd be rather on the ball. I mean, even Rios marks that maybe firing back would be a good idea. While the La Serena is clearly outgunned against the planet's defense grid as well as this old Romulan bird of prey, a mysterious ship appears out of nowhere to assist them. It was hard to get a good look at this ship, but it really does remind me of some retrofitted aero shuttle from Voyager. It does a fair bit of damage to a bird of prey, with one of its nacelles getting sliced off, though suffering damage itself. The final scene of this episode is a much welcomed one. The pilot of a damaged fighter beams on board the La Serena, and we find out it's 7 of 9. I actually quite like the shock on Picard's face when he slowly realises and slowly says her name. Injured, she falls to the ground, so I expect episode 5 will see the EMH patching her up. Episode 4 ends there, and there's still a lot of mystery in this series so far, and I have a feeling next week we'll start to see more unravel. As always, tell us what you think of the episode down below in the video comments section. If you're looking for a more casual discussion of Star Trek Picard, then feel free to tune in to Trek Central Live on Sundays at 9 PM GMT, discussing all things Picard Episode 4 and what's to come in Episode 5. That's our wrap on Episode 4 of Star Trek Picard. Remember, the episode will air on February 14th for international viewers via Amazon Prime Video. If you like this video and want to keep up to date with all things Star Trek news, lore and more, then make sure to subscribe to Trek Central here on YouTube. You can also follow us on social media for daily updates, as well as visit our website for weekly articles. We're also now rolling out our community Discord server, so come join the party ahead of a new series. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thanks for watching Trek Central, and I'll of course see you very soon.